What's up to my empowerment family? So grateful for your decision to watch and worship together with us today, whenever today may be for you. I know some of you all watch us live every single Sunday morning. Some of you all catch us back on Monday, Sunday night, Wednesday, Thursday. Some of you all catch us just when you're scrolling. Whatever the case may be, I want to say thank you so much. And here's what I want to ask you to do. I want to ask you to hit that share button, to share this with somebody else. Send this to somebody else. Your shares make way more of a difference than you ever know. That life change, that transformation, that somebody's revival, somebody's renewal, somebody's eye-opening moment, somebody's life-altering moment is on the other side of your share. That who you share it with may not be the last person who gets it. Just because you text it to a person doesn't mean that message stops at that person, which means whenever you don't share, you're stopping the possibility of God touching the life of somebody who needs to hear it. Hit that share button. So I'm so grateful for you all. Listen, we're in an incredible season. We have a couple things happening. I want you to hear about them, and then we'll get into this message today. Number one, our intercessory prayer group meets every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. I want you to fill out that form on the church website or scan that QR code to sign up for it. Maybe you want to grow in the area of prayer, learn more about prayer, join our prayer team. Now here it is. You can learn more about prayer and not join our prayer team. That's perfectly fine. You may be somebody who says, man, I got a gift of intercession. I would love to join the prayer team. All of that is on that call. Learn about prayer, grow in prayer, pray together, join our prayer team. All that happens Mondays at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time via Zoom. That information is on the screen. Secondly, every Wednesday, we have a prayer call. Now, that prayer call is us praying for you and us praying with you. You call in, you're muted, and our team prays with you. Whether it's me or somebody else on our team, they're praying with you. They're praying for you. We're believing God together with you. That's every Wednesday at 6:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And we pray again on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We pray twice a day, 6:30 a.m., 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. That call information is available for you on the screen. That call has been going for over 8 years now. We've been praying every Wednesday at 8 p.m. for over 8 years. We added the 6:30 prayer call in the pandemic, which means we've been doing that probably for over 3, at least 3. To God be the glory. People still call in for prayer. To God be the glory. We're still hearing stories of transformation. And it's because you're sharing that with other people. I want to invite you to be on it. I want to invite you to share that with somebody else. Second to last thing, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, you can connect together with others who are part of this empowerment family from all over the world through our book club, through our chapter and verse book club. We're walking through a book together. That's life is 90%, 10% what happens to you, 90% of how you respond. It's an incredible time. It's at 7 p.m. That information is on the screen to scan and join that book club, to find out what's happening, to lock in together in community. Hey, listen, just because you may be far away from somebody doesn't mean you can't connect with somebody. These groups are an opportunity for you to connect in community, to learn some about people who maybe you see every week or people who you've never seen before. It's a great opportunity for you to lock in and connect together with us. Last thing is this, we're headed into the Lent season. This Wednesday, which is Valentine's Day, is also Ash Wednesday, which is generally the time which we would start our Lent fast. What we're going to do is this. I'm real enough to say what you want, which is some of y'all ain't going to be thinking about fasting on Ash Wednesday because it's Valentine's Day. So I want to make sure your heart's posture is in the right place when we're doing this. I don't want you to feel conflicted. And I also don't want you to feel like go into the day knowing you're not going to keep it up. Like that defeats the whole purpose of the surrender. So what we're going to do is we're going to start our Lent fast this upcoming Sunday. You're going to get your fast guide, but we're going to start it on Sunday, February the 18th, is when we'll actually kickstart and lead into that journey to Easter, that journey toward the resurrection. So this fast guide, I'm telling you, I'm excited about it because it's talking about what it means for us to watch our mouth, what we're saying, what we're eating, watching our mind, what we're thinking about what we're thinking about, putting in the right stuff. It's talking about watching your money, just becoming a better steward over what it is God has entrusted us. It's about watching your minutes, not allowing the enemy to get you through the demon of procrastination. The Bible tells us, teach us to number our days, to steward them well. So I'm excited about that. It's going to be incredible. That fast guide is available to you all. And listen, we're growing. The best is yet to come. I want you to stay locked in for this message. It's going to be a good one. I'll see you in the chat. Let's go.
I'm going to take you back to two pieces. One of them is verse 6. It says, he was wearied by his long journey. Jesus is weary. Jesus is tired and fatigued. And then he says something very interesting in the end of verse 14. He says, for when you drink the water I give you, it becomes a gushing fountain of the Holy Spirit, springing up and flooding you with endless life. Filling up and gushing, flooding you with endless life. For the few moments I have with you today, I want to title our brief exchange, Killing Me Softly. Killing Me Softly. Some of you are old enough to remember those words of the song. Singing my life with his words, strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with the words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling me my whole life with his words. It was this song that was written to communicate this reality around how sometimes words can end up leading us to a place of being deceived, of leading us to a place of not fully understanding the realities of what we're facing. And while she was referring to the words of a man, I want to ask you the question, are there some things that have been feeling good to you, tasting good to you, some words that may have been making you feel some kind of way, and while you thought that they were being good to you, were actually hurting you, and meanwhile you were partaking in them like a willing participant, you didn't even realize it was killing you softly. Are there some habits? Are there some hurts? Are there some hang-ups that you have been unaware of that you thought were innocent, you thought were victimless, you thought weren't anything that was causing detriment to your well-being, and you didn't know it was killing you softly? Are there narratives you have formulated about yourself that you have been allowing the voices inside of your head that the enemy uses to trick you? Have you been allowing the voices in your head to strum your pain with your own fingers or with the fingers of the enemy? Have you allowed distractions to sneak up into your life and whisper sweet nothings to you about you to make you feel like you weren't worth it and didn't realize you were actually being killed softly? At the time of our text, we find a woman. This woman is in Samaria. This woman is growing tired. She is going to a well, which is where you find nourishment, which is where you find reprieve, which is where you find relief. And she's at this well that Jesus also is going to for the same reasons. Jesus, it says, is tired. Jesus, it says, is fatigued. And I feel like at the beginning of this year, it is key and critical for me to point out to you that while you may think you can just keep going and going and going like the Energizer Bunny, Jesus got tired. Jesus stopped for rest. And some of us, while this is not a part of my message that I intended to communicate to you today, some of us think that the fact that we can't stop grinding is a result of our desire for growth, but some of us can't stop grinding because we haven't learned the spiritual practice of rest, and that's why we're unproductive. That rest is a requirement for productivity. Rest is a requirement for fruitfulness. Rest is a requirement for optimal living. Jesus teaches us that. Before I talked last week about walking on the water, he didn't walk on the water till he went to pray. He didn't go out and try and do miracles while he didn't have the full cup of being with his Father. And there's some of us, you've been doing some stuff that's been killing you softly, and nobody ever stopped to tell you, like I told you in that series called What Happened, nobody ever told you what you're doing is not good. If you missed that What Happened to You series, Tom, what was I in it for about 15 weeks? If you missed that, I would encourage you during this time where you're evaluating and reimagining, you might want to go back. And specifically that one I remember, that was called It's Not Good, might just help set you free. Here it is. This woman is here. She's tired. She's fatigued. This man is here named Jesus. He's wearied by his long journey. He's fatigued. Is it possible that you too know what it's like to be fatigued? To be frustrated, to have gone on a journey. Many of us have lived through this global pandemic in one way, shape, or form, and it has caused some degree of fatigue. Some of you has caused fatigue of hearing about COVID. There's another new variant they're talking about right now. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I don't know when they're going to stop coming up with variants. I don't know when people are going to stop getting sick. I don't know when we're going to stop hearing about these reports on the news. But so what I'm saying is I'm not just telling you to brace yourself for more things to come. I'm talking about the reality that life has a way of bringing us challenges we didn't see coming, and it will end up making us fatigued. Jesus is tired. This woman comes to Jacob's well to draw water, but she did not come when the other women came. She comes at a time of the day when she would not see anybody else. You see, the woman came to draw water early in the morning before the sun rose. They came when it was still cool, so the other women could come when it was cool outside. But history tells us that this was actually a journey from the land. So there was a journey and a track to get there. And when she was coming, she would end up coming in the middle of when the heat was the hottest. So while they would come together. But while she would come by herself. And in verse 17 and 18 is when we find out why. It tells us she's a woman that's been living a life that is causing, she's been living her life in a way that's causing her to have to live in a degree of isolation from others. Says she doesn't just have a husband, she's had multiple husbands. Some have suggested that some of those husbands that she had weren't actually husbands, but they were just partners who did not belong to her, which is what Jesus says back. And so some have suggested, now I'm not telling this is the case, but some have suggested that she might have been avoiding the other women because the women that she was avoiding might have been the husbands of the men that she was with. I don't know that. What I do know is the life she was living was contrary to the life that was the normal life. And as a result of it, she's experiencing a degree of isolation, so she has to keep coming at a time when other people cannot come. She's isolated. She is a social outcast. Others don't understand her. Others don't want to be bothered with her. Others are discarding her. Others have written her off. And so she ends up in a place where she cannot understand what other people's experiences are. And so to keep from being criticized and to keep from being ostracized, to keep from being talked about, to keep from having to deal with this reality of the circumstances of the life she's been living, she ends up having to go through things at an inconvenient time. She ends up having to live her life from a seeming state of isolation. Now, I want you to think about that. She has to travel during the hottest time of the day. She is physically and mentally exhausted, which is often a constant reminder potentially of her failure. I got to go at this time that's inconvenient. I got to go at this time that causes isolation because of the mistakes I've made in my past. Killing me softly every time I show up and I'm isolated. Every time I show up and I'm misunderstood. Every time I have to take this trek, it's a reminder of the mistakes I made in my past. Is there anybody watching this that can relate to the realities of your present circumstances being a perpetual reminder of the mistakes you made in your past? That because you have not been liberated yet, because you have not been freed yet, because you have not stepped into the fullness of what's possible yet, you continue to rehearse the narrative of your past pains and past mess ups, not realizing there is still possibility for what lies ahead. You've just been being killed softly. This woman has degrees of isolation she is going through. She is an outcast, and this is a picture of all of us, whether we know it or not. All of us are in some degrees of isolation. It's a picture of our sinful condition that makes us contrary to the nature of God, but because God introduces himself to us the same way he does to her as living water, we are reintroduced to a new possibility of our lives. So while we should not be able to socialize, while we should not be able to enjoy the fullness of life, God saw fit to bring us back into right relationship with him. That is the free gift that we're given that cost him everything, called salvation. That's the story. She's out of fellowship. She's out of relationship. She's living in a degree of isolation. This miserable condition. The verses continue as she moves from this state and from this stage of isolation. She then begins to move into this state, and it demonstrates her ignorance. As Jesus begins to have a conversation with her, it begins to show what she does and doesn't know about what can happen for her. And there's some of you right now that people have been trying to have conversations with you, and maybe you've just been watching and tuning into empowerment. And as you've been tuning into empowerment, I've been trying to have conversations with you about your future, but your past keeps calling you. I've been attempting to have conversations with you about your future, but your past keeps calling you. And because your past is what you're familiar with, you're ignorant to the possibilities of the words that have been shared and communicated to you. So you're missing your future potentially based upon your past and your present, not realizing that the God we serve is able to redeem the time. So it's not that he'll give you the time you lost, he'll make up for it with the time you got left. And is there anybody early in this year that is ready and willing to step into the fullness of the potential that lies within you? You're saying, yes, I made some mistakes, and yes, I got it wrong, and yes, I had some failures in my past, and yes, everything about me isn't pretty, but I thank God today that who I was is not who I have to be. What I did does not define who I am. And if you didn't know it, I'm glad I just let you know who you were is not who you have to be. What you did does not define who you are. While culture may teach us that, Jesus teaches us something else. Culture tells us that. Culture tells us whatever you did then determines who you are now. Jesus teaches us that what you did then is what you did then. But you and I have a choice to decide to pursue healing. And as I choose to pursue healing, healing is a choice where both God and man are involved. It's God's choice to heal, and it's my choice to be honest. And I don't know about you, but this series is laid on my heart to help teach you how to be honest about being dissatisfied enough with where you are so that you can be honest enough to say, I don't know what's next. I don't know who you have for me, because the people around her didn't. She could have tried to fit in, but she wasn't trying to. I don't know who you got for me. I don't know who my friends are supposed to be, but them ain't my friends. I hate it here. Honest enough and humble enough. I'll come back to that in a second. Honest enough and humble enough. She's experiencing degrees of isolation, but she's expressing her ignorance, right? So in these verses, in verse number 7, as Jesus is talking to her, Jesus begins to say to her, I got something that I want to introduce you to. I have something that I want to do with you and I want to do through you. I'm weary. You're weary. The disciples aren't here. It's just me and you talking. And what I want you to do is, woman, I want you to give me some water. She said, why would you ask me for some water? She tries to argue with Jesus. And she tries to argue with Jesus with the limited information that she has been given. And just like you and me most of the time, I'm about to bust some theological bubbles. Most of the time, the information we were given when we were younger was a lie. Intentional or unintentional. And when I say it was a lie, I don't mean people maliciously use the Bible to lie to you. There was a lack of education and information that was communicated about what certain things meant. And so they used religion, and they still use it today in some circles to keep people bound instead of to set people free. The words she was articulating were religious rhetoric that was communicated back then. She tries to argue religion with Jesus, who is more concerned with relationship than religious tradition. She begins talking about their religious differences. She starts to say stuff like, why would this Jewish man ask a Samaritan man for woman for water? Because in that day, a Jewish man wouldn't ask a Samaritan woman for anything. Jesus begins to say, listen, if you only knew who I was, if you only knew what could happen for you, if you only knew I'm trying to introduce you to a you on the inside of you haven't met yet, you'd ask me for something differently. You asking me about why would I ask you for water instead of asking me why am I here? And are some of you right there that you have been experiencing so much pain and you've experienced so many problems and you've experienced so much in your past that Jesus is here in your present and you're asking him questions based upon the cognitive bias I've talked to you about in your past experiences. So based upon your past, you're like, why would this happen? Why would you do this? Why are you here? And he like, listen, if you really knew who I was, you'd stop wasting time on that. You'd ask me for a drink. You asking, why do I want you to get it for me? But if you only knew who I was, you'd ask me for freedom. If you only knew who I was, you'd ask me for strength. If you only knew who I was, you'd ask me for something that would change your life forever. And I want to talk to some people right now who have been experiencing something that's been killing you softly, and what you didn't realize is that the Lord has been with you, waiting on you to open your eyes to see that while you've been asking for one thing, praying potentially for one thing, have you been asking him to open your eyes so that you can see who he was? Because some of you haven't realized that just because you said yes to him the first time, that it doesn't mean you know who he is. He says, if you knew who I was, it would change everything. When he shows up, Jesus breaks customs and he breaks conventional wisdom. And there's some of you who are trying to figure out, how was this going to happen? When is this going to happen? How was this going to happen? I did this. I'm guilty of this. I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have this. But you built different. He's not asking you, what do you have? He's not asking you, what did you do? He's not concerned about all that other kind of stuff. He breaks customs and he breaks conventional wisdom to give breakthroughs. He breaks through customs. He breaks through conventional wisdom and logic to provide breakthroughs for what people need. He breaks through normalities to introduce people to what he really has for them. And I want to let you know with no hesitation today that he wants to break through what you've been thinking about yourself and your circumstance and your situation to ask you, are you willing to be honest and humble and say, I hate it here, so he can take you on to where he wants you to go. He introduces her to a new reality. You keep coming back to the place that reminds you of your pain. And I'm trying to tell you, if you ask me for it, I'll give you something you'll never thirst again. He's saying you keep coming back here, and every day you come back here, it reminds you of what you did. It reminds you of how they hurt you. It reminds you of how those other men left you. It reminds you of this. It reminds you of all this kind of pain. It reminds you of all of your problems. But if you would ask me, if you would seek me, if you would drink from what I have to give you, not only will I give you thirst and reprieve for where you are, I'll give you relief from everything that happened to you. He says you'll never thirst again. You'll never have to rehearse the pain of your past again. But some of you can't get free because you won't say, I hate it here. I don't want to complain. I don't want to sound like I'm doing this. No, I got to be honest. Yes, sometimes complaining is definitively a lack of gratitude, a lack of appreciation, and a lack of awareness. That's complaining. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm not even going to go down that track. I'll do that another day because I'll get lost right there. The difference between complaining and being honest is what David demonstrates. Yeah, David in the book of Psalms begins to write out how he really feels. Lord, I feel like this is what's happening. I feel like this is what's happening. I feel like this is what's happening. I don't know why this is happening, but I can't figure out why this is happening. I know I don't like what's going on. Honest. And because he was honest, I believe it's how he kept finding his hope. Because he was honest, it's how he was able to walk in healing. But he was able to say, I don't like how this feels. Some of you are trying to figure out, how do I know when it's okay? What did the Lord promise us? He says, I have come that you might have life and life more abundantly. Well, if he promised us that, so the enemy is at work, undeniably so, right? He's coming to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But he says, but I came to give you life. So if you're in a place where you keep coming back to the same stuff, you're not in a season, you're in a repetitive cycle that the Lord wants to break. But he won't break it till you say, I hate it. Some of you, this is gonna be meddling time, but it's okay. It's just me and you in the studio, so I can meddle all I want to, and y'all can't throw nothing at me. Some of you all have been in the same repetitious cycles of stuff for forever, and you've been blaming God. And he's like, no, that ain't me. That's you. I came to give you life. I came to give you joy. I came to give you peace. I came to lead you through it. I didn't come to take away your problems, but I did come to give you peace in the midst of them. I didn't come and tell you won't have trials and you won't have tribulations, but I did make it clear that I would be with you always until the end of the earth. So if you don't feel like you're experiencing joy, if you don't feel like you're experiencing love overflowing, if you don't feel like you have peace in the middle of your problems, it's not because you're in a season. It's because you're in a cycle that you have not invited the Lord in to help you see how you can change. And when he shows up to this woman who has been experiencing the perpetuation of things that were killing her softly, he says, if you knew who I was, you'd stop playing with me and start praying to me. You stop talking about me and you start seeking me. Because what was happening here, oh, that's so good. Because what was happening here is she ends up going into a conversation about the Messiah, and the Messiah is who she was talking to. And some of us are spending so much time talking about him instead of realizing we need to be talking to him. She's talking about him to him. She's telling him about him. And some of you all think you know so much that you spend so much time talking about the goodness of God instead of experiencing the goodness of God. Time I said I wasn't going to act like this early in the year, but I felt real pastoral right there. She's talking about the living water to the living water. She starts having a conversation that says something like, yeah, well, when the Messiah comes, he said the Messiah is here. That's the equivalent of when I say, you keep talking about you waiting on God, and the Lord is waiting on you. Because she's talking about what is to come. He's talking about I'm already here. And what if the moment for your breakthrough, what if the moment for you to step into what is to be would only be based upon you reimagining how you see possibility for your future. Can you reimagine it? Can you step out of your pain enough? Can you step out of the cycle enough? Can you step out of the repetition of what everybody else has always said about you? And if I was to ever, maybe one day I'll do it so that you can understand just a little bit more, because some of you I've come to understand think that because let's use me, I'll just use me because I'm the only one who can be honest right now, because I'm the only person that got the camera faced upon me, and some of y'all wouldn't be honest anyway if you had the camera faced upon you. Some of you all think that once you reach a certain level of spirituality, once you know enough scriptures, once you know enough Bible, once you pick up enough titles, you think that problems are erased, and that is definitively a lie. You think that people won't criticize you, that's a lie. You think that because you do good, people won't mistake your good for bad, that's a lie. You think that because you're doing good, people won't find reasons to make up and gossip about you, that's a lie. You think because you do good works and because all you want to do is serve the Lord, people won't criticize and compare and complain, that's a lie. As much as we grew in 2021, as much as we grew in 2020, I can likewise point to some people who started the year with us and didn't end the year with us, not because they died, but because they left. I can definitively point to some people who have no problem with ghost posting and making comments. They ghost follow, they don't like, they don't comment, but they look at what happens and they say, I can't believe they did that. Why he do that? Why is this that? And I'm only telling you this because if you live based upon the voices of other people and not the voice of God, you will forever be stuck in this rat race of a cycle where you won't realize God is with you, God's talking to you, but instead you're so concerned about the appearance of other people, the perspectives of other people, that you'll miss your moments of what's possible. Here she is. She's ignorant. She's arguing with Jesus. Not only is she ignorant, though. Not only is she ignorant, and it's so powerful because the woman said, listen, you don't even have a bucket. She says, you don't even have what you need to get this water out. Is it possible the reason for why you have not been willing to move past what's been killing you is because you feel like you don't have what it takes to get out? She said, she said, look, you don't even got a bucket. What do you want me to use? What do you want me to use, Jesus? He's like, I want you to use what you have. I want you to depend upon me. Because some of you are like, I don't know how to get out of this. I don't know how to break this cycle. I don't know how to move forward from this. I don't know how to leave this. So you can't possibly be asking me to leave this, and I don't know how to do it. I don't know what it takes. I don't know he said, I want you to depend on me. See, you think it would take that. What if I told you it didn't take all that? This last stretch of my life, the number one question I was asked was, Teddy, how did you become the chaplain for the Chicago Bears? What did you do? How did this work? How did this go? And I had to look back at everybody and say, before I tell you anything else, God did that. Because it didn't happen the way it happened for everybody else. It wasn't me. I wasn't looking for it. It found me. And I'm not saying it to brag. I'm saying it to boast in the Lord about what's possible when you stop being so thirsty for the wrong stuff. And when you stop believing the hype about how stuff has to happen. I'm not telling you there won't be a process for you. I'm saying trust God's process for you over the process of other people. Because he will shortcut some steps. Sometimes he takes you the long way. Here it is. Let me see if I can find my way into this so I can get you out of here today. Jesus, if I backdoor my way back, it says that Jesus is walking from one place into another place. And if memory serves me correct, Tom, it says that he has to go through Samaria. Jesus does not have to go through anywhere, but it says he had to go through here. Why did he have to go through here? Because God's plan and God's purpose looks differently than our plan and our purpose. So while there might have been another way, there could have been an alternative way. God's way was for him to go this way. God's way was for him to have this encounter on his journey. And I'm only saying that because some of you thought that I would be here by now. I thought this would be this way by now. But is it possible God wanted to say, you have to go this way? You may not have wanted to go this way, but are you willing to say, like Mary said, I am the Lord's servant. May it be to me according to your word. This way may be inconvenient. Jesus was tired, so this was an inconvenient way, not just for this woman, but for Jesus. It says he was worn out. So the Lord sends him away where he's fatigued. Do you understand that sometimes you will end up in a place where you have to go through some unconventional routes and some unconventional processes, but it does not mean that God's not still with you. There's some of you right now who, if I could just pause for a second, because you haven't got to your there yet, you feel like you won't get to your there ever. Your timing is not God's timing. For his ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts, declares the Lord. You're like, oh, such and such got there first, so I won't get there. Just because they got there first don't mean you won't get there. And just because they got there first don't mean you won't get there on time. Just because they got there first don't mean you won't get there when you were supposed to get there. Because God has a way of getting you to where he wants to get you. And he will move mountains to get you where he wants to get you. He will part the Red Seas to get you where he wants to get you. He will use ravens to get you what he wants to get you. He will allow the unusual, the uncommon, the unconventional. He will use a virgin birth to get you where he wants to get you. He will use old people who shouldn't have babies to get you where he wants to get you. He will use strange things. He will use fire. He will use mountains. He will use a mustard seed to get you where he wants to get you. He will use a little bitty Lunchable to get you where he wants to get you. 2 fish, 5 barley loaves to feed them. He will use what he needs to use to get you what he wants to get you when he wants to get you. He had to go there. He had to go there. And he was tired when he got there. Because we have not a high priest that cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities. So this woman is here and she's tired. But Jesus is here and he's tired to teach us the reality that we don't serve a Jesus who does not understand our pain. But we do have a Savior that teaches us how to keep making progress. We do have a Savior that teaches us about the developmental process of purpose. Jesus shows up, says to her, listen, if you drink from this water, you'll never be thirsty again. When you drink from what I got, when you step into what I have, you'll get endless life. Yeah, so while what you were doing was killing you softly, when you accept me, I'll give you a new life. Yeah, that's what you knew, but I got something new for what you knew. I got something new for what you thought you knew. And some of you all are just like this woman. You know too much. You're so informed, but you're so informed with stuff that don't matter. You think you know it all and you don't know nothing. Jesus is here saying, listen, if you knew who I was, I'll redeem it. If you knew who I was, if you hungered and thirsted after his righteousness, is what his word says. He says, if you hunger and thirst after righteousness, you shall be filled. If you want that, you got to go through me. If you want what I have, you have to go through me. That you can't get satisfaction and fulfillment from any place else but me. That the world has things that can offer you, that can bring you happiness, but those things will never bring you joy. I know a lot of people, to be clear, I knew a lot of people before doing what I do now. I know a lot of people that have money but didn't have peace. I 100% know now people that have money and don't have peace. Because some of you all think money will solve your problems. Money is not the answer to all things. Some of you think that the limelight will solve your problems. I know people that have more limelight than they could ever ask for, and they run from it because it ultimately did not solve their problems. Bishop Jakes used to teach us, I'll never forget being in the room that day, and he said the only thing the light brings is more heat. and don't ask God to turn on the light if you don't want to stay in the pressure of the heat. This woman, I love it. I love it because here's what this woman says. She says, listen, verse 15, let me drink that water. She's humble enough to say, listen, I want that. That talk you talking, I know what I just said. I know all of what I just said. But I'm going to drop my pride. I know all of what I just said to you, Lord. I know what I just told you. But I want that. So I'll never be thirsty again. And I won't ever have to come back here to draw water. Do you hear what she says? She says, listen, I realize where I am is wrong. Where I am is where I should have never been. That the stuff I had been doing that may have been good to me was not good for me. I never want to come back here again. I hate it here. She said, I don't ever want to come back here. I hate it here. And there's some of you've been doing some stuff that might have been good to you, but was not good for you. So it was satisfying a part of you, but it wasn't satisfying your soul. It wasn't bringing you peace. It wasn't bringing you joy. And there's some stuff that we can do. There's some stuff in this rat race of life that because the world teaches us to obey your thirst keeps leading you to thirst traps. So you obey your thirst here and don't realize if you're satisfying your thirst with things of this world, your thirst will never be quenched. The world can't give you peace. The world can't give you rest. I don't know what just almost came. I almost threw my iPad. The world can't give you peace. This is. I'm gonna say this. And those who know me know that he is my guy. Michael Jackson. Feel however you want to feel. If you get in this chat being ugly, I hope they block you and never let you back in. So don't you talk about Mike to me. But Michael Jackson spent his life and ultimately lost his life attempting to find peace and to find sleep and to find rest through forms of the world and to find it through prescriptions that the world was attempting to offer, not realizing that there's a type of sleep that we need, that you and I need, that does not come from anything that the world can offer. And he's a name that made the news, but how many of us do things to try to help us sleep at night? To find a panacea for your pain? How many of us call people late at night to try to help take our mind off of the problems of this world? How many of us accept phone calls at times from people we shouldn't accept phone calls from because we're trying to find panaceas for our pain? Instead of being grown enough, being adult enough, being spiritually mature enough to say, I am only here because of the consequences of my own decisions, but I can talk about what I did to get here, or I can pray to God and start taking steps to what I'm going to do to get out of here. I hate it here. She said, give me that so I won't ever have to come back here again. You know what she does here? She drops her pride. Can I tell you this? Pride has been killing a lot of us softly. And the Bible says that pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a great fall. Pride. Pride because of the pain you may have brought upon yourself. Because sometimes you brought the pain upon yourself, you brought the problem upon yourself, and pride won't let you to admit, this was on me. Sometimes the appearance of how it can appear to other people will make you feel like, yeah, I'm going to just live in it instead of deal with it. Pride. 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 Pride can prevent you from listening. That was her problem at first, right? Pride can prevent you from listening. Jesus is talking, but she ain't listening. Pride can prevent you from listening. Pride can prevent you from learning. When she drops her pride, she learns something. Are you not learning something? And are you not learning some things because your pride is in the way? Are you not listening to what you need to be listening to, trusting what you need to trust because your pride is in the way? Some people who aren't a part of this church anymore, but used to be a part of this church family, I definitively can point to some of them and tell you their pride about who they thought Say it how I feel it, because y'all ain't here to throw nothing at me. Who they thought I was? What they pictured would be their pride. Let them come in, get a good word, get what they need from God, and walk out the door. Like, that was a good word, but my pastor got to be 50 years older than me. Okay. That's your prerogative. That was pride. Who you think you are talking to me like that? Yeah, that's second that come up, that's called pride. When that thing rises up right there, that is what is called pride. Pride can prevent you from listening. Pride can prevent you from learning. Pride can prevent you from looking. Is it possible she has stopped even looking for a way out because her pride had got in the way of what she was so used to doing? I'm just so used to doing this that I know it's not right. I know I'm not living well, but this is what I do. That's a dangerous place to be in, isn't it, y'all? Where my pride keeps pulling me back when God is trying to help me move forward. This hurts me, but this is just what I do. I'm not living. Here it is. This is what has pushed me more than ever in this season to make sure Empowerment Anywhere goes forward, to make sure the Barrier Breakers coaching program goes forward, and to make sure that people who want to get better and live better don't have an excuse of saying the resource wasn't there. This is why, because this woman is not only not living righteously, she's not living righteous nor well, but she's living religious. Righteously, at least following God's moral principles and ethics. She ain't doing that. And she's not living well. Because some of y'all are living righteously, but you're not living well. What do you mean when you say living well? At peace, with love, in joy, in fulfillment, saved and satisfied. You're not living well. Some of y'all ain't living right or well. She's not living right or well. I believe you can live right and well. She's not living right or well. And she reaches this conclusion. She moves her pride out of the way. She says very simply, listen, let me have some of that. Let me have some of that. Because right here, I don't want to ever come back here again. I don't ever want to come back here again. Jesus said some interesting words right here, though, y'all. This is, I don't want to, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I don't want to keep you here, and I don't want to have to come back to here again next week. But I don't know. But there's something you got to see right here, because right here something shifts. He says, I don't ever want to come back here again. Jesus says, in order for me to set you free, I got to deal with what you've been hiding. You don't want to come back here again? Then we have to address the mess. You don't want to come back here again? We have to address the mess. And some of you all want to move past some stuff but don't want to get healed from it. You don't want to address it so that you can move past it. He said, we got to acknowledge something. Hold up. We got to acknowledge some stuff. We can't just pretend like I don't know some stuff about you. He said, hold up, wait a minute. Go get your husband. Go get your husband and bring him back here. She says, but I'm not married. He said, that's true. For you've been married 5 times. You've been living in sin. And now you're living with a man who still is not your husband. You have told the truth. Is it possible? I'm going to bother some of you all a little bit right here. Is it possible that she's been keeping this a secret from everybody else? And when Jesus says you have told the truth, he's not just confronting her. Like, that's how we teach it, right? We teach it when he says that, we teach it like he's confronting her about what she says. What if he's not only confronting her in that moment, what if he's acknowledging the fact that she was honest? right? Because we often do it. At least I've done it. Maybe you haven't. But some of us say that last verse from a place of judgment. What if Jesus is saying that from a place of acknowledgement? Because the truth shall set you free. So what if when he says it there, he's not saying it because he's judging her? What if he's saying it there because he's acknowledging her honesty? Because you can't get healed if you won't be honest. You can't move forward if you won't be honest. You can't step out of what you've been in if you won't be honest. And so he says to her, what you have said is true. You've spoken truth. You're telling the truth. She says to him, sir, I can see you're a prophet. Sir, I can see you know something that flesh and blood have not. Sir, I see you see something. You're a seer. You must be a prophet. How you know this? So tell me this. This is what she said. She said, tell me this. Our ancestors worship on this mountain, but the Jews, you claim there's a place that you got to worship is all the way up in Jerusalem. Jesus says, woman, listen. There's a time coming. And this time that's coming, you ain't got to worship on no mountain. You ain't got to worship in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you don't know, but we worship what we do know. That salvation is from the Jews. He says, listen, ultimately you worship guessing. This is how I love how Eugene Peterson puts in the Message translation. In the message Bible, it says, you worship guessing in the dark. But we Jews worship in the clear of day. That God has made available salvation through the Jews. He says, so us, we do things differently. Us who understand it, we live differently. He says, ultimately, what you got to know is this. The time is coming. In fact, the time has now come when true worshipers will worship in the Father in the Spirit and in truth. He says in the Message Bible, he says the fact the time is coming and has come when what you're called won't matter and where you go to worship will not matter. It won't be about where you go. It'll be about the life you live. It'll be about the person you become. It'll be about the decisions that you make to trust me. He said that God is a spirit, and they that worship God must worship him in spirit and in truth. That your worship must engage your spirit through the pursuit of truth. Do you want to be... He asked her without asking her. He's telling her about wellness. He said about wholeness. Saying that, listen, it's not about religious rhetoric. It's not about this other kind of stuff. It's about stepping out of what's been killing you softly. But behavior change without heart change is temporary. So you can talk to me all you want to about this, but if you haven't made some decisions to do something differently, what you're talking to about me is temporary. That if you want to worship me, you got to worship me in spirit and in truth. He's saying, I don't think it's accidental. He just told her what you said is true. And then comes back and says, you got to worship me in truth. Because some of you have been worshiping him in spirit and in dishonesty. You've been worshiping him, but you've been worshiping him from a place of spirit and deceit. You've been lying to God and lying to yourself. And it's been killing you softly. Killing you softly. It's been keeping you back. It's been holding you back. It's been holding you down. But just like this woman shows up, this man shows up unexpectedly and meets this Samaritan woman at the well, I'm telling you today without any hesitation, without any reservation, the Lord is showing up today to give you an opportunity to step into the fullness of who he is and to step into the fullness of who he called you to be. You can make a decision to say, this won't keep killing me softly. I hate it here. And I want to step into the life you're calling me to live. I don't ever want to come back here. Because for some of you and most of you, if you're going to be honest, the here you don't need to come back to is an emotional state of being. I don't want to come back to feeling like I'm in this sunken place. I don't want to go back to stinking thinking. I don't want to go back to low-level thinking where I didn't realize God was calling me, God loved me, God chose me. Ultimately, I remember talking to Tom before we started recording today, and we had this conversation about how Jesus shows up to this woman he shouldn't have been talking to because he teaches us, he approaches people that other people would tell you you shouldn't even be associated with. He's not concerned about who you are in a sense of what you have. He's not concerned about who you are in the sense of what you look like. He's not concerned about who you are in the sense of where you came from. He's not concerned about any of that. He's concerned about, do you realize who you are in me? And do you realize who I am to you? Do you realize who I can be to you if you accept me? If you drink from me, you'll never thirst again. But it's not, he says, it ain't enough for you just to drink from me, though. When you drink from me, you got to understand, you got to worship me. And you worship me through an expression of your life. Are you living your life in a way where you're expressing the Father in spirit, but living it out in truth? This woman gets so free. They keep talking about her. It keeps talking about her. So this story right here, at least this part of it, this part in the Bible where it's like titled in my Bible, it ends in verse 26. It keeps talking about this woman all the way through the rest of this chapter, though. All the way through the rest of this chapter. Because she started going around every place and she started telling people, listen, this man just told me everything about me. He told me everything I did. What she says is, wait a minute, this man just freed me, and because he freed me, I want to see other people get freed. He said, they don't worship God, must worship me in spirit and in truth. She had been living a lie. So she hadn't been telling people about her life, but she's so committed to stepping into the newness of who she is instead of the person that she had been. She says, I don't care what you think about me. I just met a man who told me everything I did. She wouldn't go out in public because she was living a life that was fake and phony. And she says, being fake is exhausting and I'm tired of pretending. So I'm going to go tell everybody about how free I am. This man just told me everything I ever did. She just keep going. She started telling people. She started showing up to people and telling people. The disciples started asking, wait a minute, what happened? The disciples were nowhere to be around. It's typical disciples, nowhere to be around. They show up and they ask this question, what? They show up, and as they show up, she's leaving her jar of water. And she started telling people, come see a man that told me everything I did. And the people started coming. And they started coming. And they started coming. Verse 39 says, many Samaritans from that town believed in him because of this woman's testimony. What was her testimony? He told me everything I did. He freed me from being fake and phony. He freed me from feeling like I had to pretend. He freed me from my past by giving me living water in my present that prepared me for my future. Told me everything I did. It says, so when the mariners came to him, they urged him to stay 2 more days, and he stayed. And because of his words, many more became believers. They said to the woman, we no longer believe just because of what you said. We heard for ourselves, and we now know that this man is really the Savior of the world. I'm trying to tell you this. I'm trying to tell you that he who the Son set free is free indeed. And some of you today, wherever you are, whatever you're up against, whatever your thing may have been, whatever your challenge may be, I know you may have done some things. We all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But the free and gracious gift of God is of eternal life. And today, you can step into the fullness of what that means. When he promises us this gift of eternal life, it's a life of life now and a life later. It's a life of where we'll go when we die, but I am telling you, it is also a life of purpose and fulfillment and joy and peace and love and while we endure long suffering, but it's a life of peace, joy, and love while we're here. Never called us to live miserably. Never called us to hide from who he called us to be. And I want you to step into that and step out of what's been killing you softly. I want you to be willing to say, I hate it here. I hate feeling like this. I hate wrestling with the truth about who I am, because me hiding about the truth of who I am makes other people feel comfortable about who they are. I hate it here. I hate having to feel like I have to hide my past, because if they ever knew my past, they wouldn't accept me in their circle. If they won't accept me in their circle because I got a past, I don't want to be in their circle. I remember a day where people would ask me where I went to school, and what I would do is I would talk about where I went to school, but I would never say I didn't finish. I didn't lie. And I realized, listen, if I can't be part of your club or your clique because I didn't finish school, because I didn't graduate from the degree, I wasn't supposed to be a part of it, no way. I hate it here. I hate feeling. Some of you all watch. You need to start being honest. I mean, I hate feeling like I gotta shrink down so that other people around me won't feel a kind of way. Shrinking down isn't a sign of humility sometimes. Sometimes it's a sign of disrespect to God, because you're saying to God, God, you gave me all this, you gave me all that, and I don't want them to be upset by what you gave me. Humility is not humility, let me put it this way. Humility can be practiced through the expression of your gifts, of your skills, of your talents, and your potential. Humility can be expressed through all of those things while you're walking in all of those things, when you continually remember who gave you the gifts, skills, and talents in the first place. When you remind yourself, I have what I have because God gave it to me, it ought to keep you humble, but ought to make sure you also don't start going backwards because other people can't handle what God gave you. Some of you today, you're watching this and you feel bad because you've made mistakes and you made mess ups and you feel like God can't use you. Gifts and callings come without repentance. He knew what he was doing when he called you. He's just calling you to come out of that so he can position you into what he has for you. Because some of you all, the only thing missing is character. The only thing missing is integrity. The only thing missing is the structure required for him to keep you moving forward in the life he has for you to live. He gifted you, and he will make your name great. But character keeps you there. He called you. He gave you something special, but integrity is what keeps you there. There's other people who are likewise skilled like you are. Your character is what will keep you. Your integrity is what will keep you. You being able to say, this is who I was, but this is not who I am. That's what this woman does. When she started telling people, this man told me everything there was about me, she's saying, this is who I was, but she is not walking up to people saying, this is who I still am. He knew everything there was about me. But what she doesn't say, because it was none of their business, and she don't start talking about her future. They couldn't handle her future. They could barely handle their own present. And some of you all, when you get so excited, you ready to talk about your future. Yeah, no, everybody can't handle that. They couldn't handle your past. They can't handle your present. They ain't going to be able to handle your future. But it don't mean you shouldn't share a testimony about the fact that God has brought you from. This one woman's testimony, many believed. What would happen if you were willing to tell somebody else, my life is changing for the better? My life has changed for the better, is changing for the better. I'm believing my life can change for the better. And do something like share the link to this message. Share the link to some messages. Come see a man, and that man ain't me. But come hear the word of the Lord through his vessels. Don't. I'm not saying they come to me every week. My goal, while you hear me, is to point to Jesus. It's to point to the word from this book. I never want to give you the words of Teddy Matthews. I always want to give you the words of this right here. Come see. Come see what this book can do. Come see what his word can do. Because his word, here's what it says. Time I'm really trying to finish this. But if my Bible's closed, but I saw the verse at the end of it. When they're talking, they say his words. Because of his words, many believe. It wasn't even his actions. It was because of his words. He was freeing people with his words. Today can be your day where you step out of some stuff and step into what he has for you. I'm not telling you to be the last day, but it can be the first day. It can be the beginning of you reimagining what he has for you. If you're watching this right now, I want to do this
Thank you so
quickly.
much for you all staying locked in. Here's what I want to ask you to do quickly. Number one, if you need to give today, give back to the Lord who has graciously given to us. I want to invite you to do so. We're in a season called First Fruits, which is at the top of the year, we ask you to set aside above and beyond to give, to sow into the field you've been reaping from, to sow into the ministry that God is using to bring life change. He's brought life change to your life. He's brought life change to countless other people. And so we sow with gratitude. We're thankful for all that he has done. But not only do we sow with gratitude, we sow with expectancy. We're believing for what he can do, for what he's going to do, for what we believe he will do. And we're saying we're not going to wait until you do what we're going to sow for what we're believing for you to do. So we want to invite you to, you can text the word empowerment to 77977, empowerment to 77977. You get by Cash App, $ Empowerment Church. Those giving options are available to you. But want to invite you, maybe you all are just giving your general seed. You can sow that today. But some of you all already start sowing your first fruits. First fruits is a biblical principle of giving God the first of what it is that you have. At the first part of the year, we're sowing, believing that God will honor it. You don't know what's going to come, but it's sowing with faith, with expectancy for what you believe. And I don't know if I get anybody watching right now, but I am a living witness that God will always meet you at the place of your expectancy. I want to invite you to sow. Maybe you need to give your life today. You want to give your life to the Lord, give your life back to the Lord, join the spiritual family. You can text DECIDED to 708-449-8197. Text DECIDED to 708-449-8197. Listen, I hope you'll have an incredible week. Hope you have an incredibly responsible week. And we just believe the best is yet to come. Miss you all. I'll talk with you all later. Share this with somebody else. Let's go.